Around the time my wife and I were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary and oldest daughter's birthday, I used my wife's phone without her knowledge and found that she had Googled questions about divorce. I was shaking as I looked through her phone messages. I figured if I didn't know this, I might not know about something else, and I was right. She was messaging a girlfriend of hers about how she was tired of me, tired of being a housewife, and wanted a chance to live her life how she wanted. Her friend talked about another man that she thought was me, but my wife corrected her, saying she was thinking of her boyfriend. Her friend advised her to file for divorce and end the marriage before she was caught cheating. She should have taken her friend's advice, but my bored housewife said she needed more time to secure her future life in advance. She wanted to make sure AP was ready for her to move in. She admitted that she planned to have AP over at our house the next time I left for a few days. I didn't know if this was the first time or just the only time she told her friend about it. She was saying terrible things, but she expected her friend to understand, not criticize her. Her friend said she was living an unfulfilled life, so she had every right to do what she wanted. That's when my wife added that she even planned to let me have full custody of our kids. I was shocked and heartbroken. It was like she didn't realize or care about how much this would affect them. I searched her phone for any secret messaging app, but I couldn't find anything, so I didn't know who AP was. I sent myself proof of this conversation and put my wife's phone back exactly where it was, moving away from it seconds before she came into the room. I looked really upset, but I used that to add credibility to my lie. I said I just got off the phone with my boss, who needed me to go on a business trip in place of a sick coworker. She looked pleased about it, but had to pretend she was disappointed. She snatched her phone and left the room. I packed and gave my wife a heartfelt goodbye and kiss. She didn't know it was the last time I would kiss her. I drove somewhere else for 2 hours. When I came back, my mom's newest husband's car was outside her house. My heart was racing as I recalled the last time we had a family gathering. My wife was definitely talking to him. I couldn't hear much, but she had flirty eyes and stood really close to him. We attended their wedding 2 years prior, and my wife said he looked incredible for his age. I'm sure his wealth didn't attract her at all. More family outings came to mind where my wife and stepdad were alone or could have done something right under my nose. I then went through the back door because the lock was broken. Thankfully, our kids were staying with friends for the weekend. Finding the downstairs empty, I went upstairs and knocked on the locked bedroom door. I heard my wife suck in air that she didn't let out for the next 20 minutes. It took her 2 minutes to open the door, and I could hear more than one person scrambling around to clean up and get dressed. When she opened the door, my mom's husband was standing shamefully beside our bed. It was the only place to stand in the room. The bed was quickly made. You could tell they were just on it. So I told them they were caught. I knew they were sleeping with each other because I saw my wife's phone earlier. AP looked ashamed and extremely embarrassed to be in this position. My wife was only upset because her future was now uncertain. Knowing who AP was, I concluded that she expected him to leave my mother so they could move in together. Now the tables had turned. I had proof, so even if she changed her mind and just wanted to keep the affair going, or AP broke up with her, there was no going back. AP asked me to forgive him and promised that if I didn't tell my mother, he would rededicate his life to making her the happiest woman alive. I just gave him a cold, hard look, since he thought I would actually buy that garbage. He looked at my wife for a split second, saying he made a huge mistake by seeing her without my knowledge. I don't think he could say what they did out loud. I asked, but he just crossed his arms, covered his mouth, and looked down. I asked if they slept together, and he shamefully nodded. My wife then said she was wrong for betraying my trust and needed me in her life. She said she was sorry for believing she was bored and needed a change. I asked my despicable stepfather to leave. My wife begged me to get into bed with her and let this go. She said 13 out of 15 years of loyalty isn't too bad, and I should be able to forgive and stay with her, meaning she was having this affair with AP for 2 years since their wedding day. I told her she was disgusting to ruin my mother's marriage and ours, and she was going to lose her husband, children, and home because of this. The tears started flowing again, but I did not care. She was not the person I thought she was. Later that night, I slept in the guest room without saying another word to her. I also called my mom and told her what happened. She was absolutely heartbroken, but thanked me for letting her know. I stayed in that room for the time it took to get the divorce finalized. My mom was also planning on divorcing AP. I didn't tell the kids what happened, but I'm sure they knew something was going on since me and their mom were quite distant. I think my wife hoped I would change my mind last minute if she behaved honorably while we went through the motions. AP swore via text he would never forgive himself, and he vowed to me that he would never see my wife again. I wondered if he realized he just gave me proof to show my mother. Not that I needed it, she would probably believe me. While waiting for the divorce to become final, I told my wife that her income was going to pay all the bills. That was the least she could do for the heartbreak she caused me. She agreed, and she spent lots of time with our children, which was bittersweet to me. I saved up money and sold some of my baseball card collection to gather enough for a down payment on a house. It had 2 sections, one for me and one for my mother. Then, just after the divorce was final, I told her the truth about her husband. She was devastated, but at least I was able to soften the blow by telling her about our new way of living. She took a week to have it out with AP and back her things, but I was there with her. No one should have to go through this, but when I considered keeping the truth from her, it didn't feel right. After proving my wife's infidelity and willingness to give me the house in custody, the judge found it impossible to believe her lies. She was forced to move in with the only person willing to have her, which was her boss. You can imagine how awkward it must have been when she had no choice but to fire her due to her poor job performance. I sold the house to help me pay off the deluxe duplex with 3 bedrooms each. My kids love the house and told me they're old enough to understand that life is full of change. They actually thanked me for handling this as well as I could for them. OP, you've been in quite a disaster here. I can't imagine how badly I would have reacted to what you came to discover that fateful day. You handled this right from the start, and I respect you for obtaining a new home for your children and mother before burdening them with the truth. You spared them much of the stress and worry that you endured, and I am proud of you. You turned a miserable situation of dishonesty and uncertainty into something that could be overcome. Your wife and stepfather were inexcusable. They lied and hid an affair from the people that trusted them more than anyone else in the world. You did well to maintain your children's trust. If only your wife would have honored and appreciated the life and family you two built together. Instead, she was willing to go behind your back and maintain an affair. I honestly don't believe she ever intended to divorce you, OP. She was too scared and comfortable with you and the kids. I am so glad you found a way to catch her red-handed, so there was no way for her to escape the reality of what she'd done. I wish you, your children, and your mother the best of luck in life. Thank you for sharing your story. Now on to our next story for today. My wife, 34, had issues getting pregnant for a handful of years. After we were blessed to have our first 2 children, our 3rd child was stillborn. It was very traumatic because we didn't expect it. After 2 successful pregnancies, we thought everything would be okay. Instead, we arrived at the hospital only to find out the devastating truth. We had to gently explain what happened to our older children, and it wasn't easy. We closed the door to the nursery and never opened it again. Just a few months later, my wife was back to work, and she started escaping to the bathroom during family time. Before walking into the kitchen, I looked over my wife's shoulder as she unlocked her phone to discover her passcode. Then I just kept watching as she replied to a message from AP. As we sat on the couch, having a movie night with our children, I couldn't react because the kids were there. That night, I checked her phone and found more extremely inappropriate texts to her coworker. They talked about work, but mostly it was about my wife, her grief, and what she needed to feel better. I woke her up in the middle of the night to confront her. She was extremely remorseful and shamed. She said now that I had caught her, reality was sinking in, so she promised to shut it down and cut him off completely. This was followed by many hard talks, but I thought we were moving forward. She told me they never slept with each other, despite all her talk about wanting to take him. I doubted her truthfulness, but I didn't want to believe my marriage was over. We went to therapy, but it ultimately didn't help because all my wife's friends and family justified her behavior by saying they understood she just needed an escape after suffering such a huge loss. Even the therapist seemed like her behavior was justified because of her grief. Why did she deserve an escape and forgiveness, when no one bothered to ask how I was handling the loss? I went through hell, handling my own grief while giving her a shoulder to cry on, only to find out she was escaping behind my back. She went so far as to tell AP she wanted him in our bed while she was home alone. When I started to consider cheating on her as revenge or to make us even, I realized there was no corrective action I could take to bring back the wife I thought I had. Since she had the approval of her friends, family, and her therapist, I decided to see how her coworkers would feel about her escaping habit. I got permission to hang up my flyer on the bulletin board by vaguely describing it as a way to spread awareness of despicability. The boss was busy at the time, so she let me hang it up. All of my wife's coworkers saw the worst texts she received, besides a text box I wrote describing our family and what we were all doing together while she had the nerve to send these. When she went into work for her next shift, she received so much criticism and slander that she returned home crying. That's when I gave her a copy of the flyer. There wasn't much she could say in her defense because I knew everything. She wanted me to forgive her and stay married, and that just couldn't happen. She wasn't the woman I married. She gave me up for an escape with another man. I don't see how us losing a child is any excuse for her to cheat on me. I'm sure that if I was the one doing this, I would have been shunned. It was a sweet relief to me that she quit her job. She was suffering from the reality she didn't want to face, and now I followed through with the divorce. A woman worthy of a wife's title would never betray the husband she had children with just because they lost a child. They would support each other in the worst of times so that moving forward became possible. They would act as pillars so their children's world could remain stable. So after the divorce, I moved myself and the children onto my cousin's farm. I heard animals can be therapeutic, and that's what I wanted us to be surrounded by. Certainly not a constant reminder of the life we used to live with their mother. She was able to stay in the house since I let her have it in the divorce. I still think she wishes for me to see it her way, but I don't understand how she can justify it. OP, I am so sorry your wife slept with another man and thought it was okay. It's really shocking that many people in her life accepted this behavior. They didn't realize they were operating as enablers in her life and making you feel like you were crazy for believing it wasn't okay. It's so good that you knew cheating wouldn't solve anything, and this thought was only a sign that you needed to end the marriage. Speaking honestly with each other would have been the solution, but I don't think your wife was willing to admit that what she was doing was wrong, especially not with the approval of her peers. I wonder what she would have thought if you asked her for permission to cheat, since it was apparently an escape and a way to handle the grief. After suffering such a loss, you both suffered the loss of your marriage and family. I'm thankful for the way you handled this. You needed to create a better, safe place for you and your children, so that's what you did. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.